Hi friends, in this video I'm going to talk about our online training program, The Design. If you're not familiar with The Design, it is our online training program that's designed to improve you at competitive CrossFit. We have multiple divisions for all skill levels. We're heading into a new training cycle, which means that's a great time to jump in. Or if you're already in the program, this video will break down more details on what we're going to do for training. And in a minute, I'm going to have coaches Brandon Dorman and Mike McGoldrick come on to talk in depth about that training. But for those of you with short ass attention spans, I'm going to try to do it really quick in 2 minutes to tell you what the themes of training right now are. So first things first, we are moving into a more community-oriented program, which means we're going to try to combine the divisions. So in the past and still, we have divisions for elite athletes, RX athletes, intermediate athletes, and masters athletes. And because the season was so complex last year and we had the open and quarterfinals and age group qualifiers and all of those were happening at different times, we had to get a little bit broken off, and now we're going to try to come back together and follow all the same template. It doesn't mean the training is going to look exactly the same, but the themes of each training day will be very similar. Me, Mike, and Brandon will talk about that shortly if you need a little bit more details. We also are throwing a competition for our whole community, July 9th and 10th. We've hosted them before. We've had great success with that. We want to give you a little bit more focus and fun and some competitive focus in your training year, because for most of you, you compete in the open. You don't compete another time until all the way back 12 months later, and we want to try to change that theme and give you a little bit of that competitive intensity and passion and fire to get after it with your friends and compare and stack up on a leaderboard. The actual nuts and bolts of the training program for strength, the last training cycle, we focused on a little bit more slow strength development because the forearm front squat exposed a lot of people in the group. So now we're moving into a little bit more Olympic weightlifting, so a little bit more focus on snatch, clean and jerk, back squat, technical jerk work. We are going to also run deadlift and bench strength and endurance progressions. Those are two movements that a lot of athletes get held up with, and it's a test in something like Linda that's come out in regionals. That's a kind of stimulus that a lot of people aren't used to, but a lot of people really develop a lot of other skills by improving that, and we've had a lot of success with that with our current elite athletes following those similar progressions. And we're gonna add some gymnastics strength work into the actual strength progression, so that way people's strict handstand push-ups, strict muscle-ups, handstand walking, strict pull-ups, rope climbs, and all of that stuff can improve over the next training cycle. From a CrossFit perspective, we're going to do a lot more barbell and gymnastics combos, so something like 21.3. I put 21.3-esque, but thrusters and muscle-ups, thrusters, chest to bars, thrusters, toes to bar, overhead squats, toes to bar, squat snatches, muscle-ups. Just that combo of doing barbell and gymnastics is a huge part of the sport, and as we transition to doing something competition-oriented, we want to make sure you're prepared for that. We will also be doing pressing endurance, so if you think of the theme of qualifier workout number one, or sorry, quarterfinal workout number one, where they did strict handstand push-ups, dumbbells, double unders, kipping handstand push-ups, dumbbells, and double unders. That type of combo exposed a lot of people's weaknesses in strict handstand push-ups and kipping handstand push-ups. So we want to make sure that we have some progressions to improve that for you. And then we're also going to do some squat and row progressions. So the quarterfinals workout that had 120 wall balls and 120 calories on the row exposed a bunch of people. 19.1 exposed a bunch of people. A lot of shorter statured or lighter athletes really get exposed by that combo. So we want to give some extra focus to those things so that way you can improve. The intermediate athletes, if you don't have all the skills that we put in elite and RX, fear none. We're going to try to prepare you. We are going to focus this cycle on chest to bars, bar muscle ups, and ring muscle ups. You're still going to get all of this other training and you're still going to have progressions for that stuff. But if the barbell gymnastics workout, for example, has a high volume of muscle ups and you can't do them, there'll be a scaling option of the workout, and then you'll get some specific strength work and skill work for the kipping and for the ring muscle ups, so that way you can continue to develop those skills and improve. That's all I got for this upcoming new cycle. Now listen to me and my friends shoot the shit about the whole cycle.
Now what? I just hit it. The same thing?
Yeah, that was great.
Just a little bit better this time.
Okay, do the same thing. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new design cycle video. We have our guests here, Brandon Dorman, Mike McGoldrick, and me.
Me, you know me.
We're guests. The audience are guests listening.
Yeah, thank you for coming. We're going to talk about the new cycle. We're finishing up Do we have a name for the cycle we just finished up?
We've been calling it limiter season.
Oh yeah. So we've just finished up limiter season. Some of the people are still in season, but it's now a very minuscule number of people that made it through quarterfinals, prepping for semis, prepping for the games. It is a big portion of our on-site group, but we want to talk about what we're doing with the design and where we're heading.
Yeah. So, I mean, we said limiter season, you said it ended, but it's actually kind of a continuation because like Masters actually just wrapped up their season.
Yep.
And then like team qualifiers and like some people are still getting ready. And then obviously with the elite, semifinals about to begin, they will actually, those that don't make it will actually start kind of trickling into this next cycle as well after they have some time off. So really, like, we just finished up the first part of the limiter season with the strength progressions and some of the CrossFit work in the RX. And we just hit like a big build up to a strength retest. We tested Murph as like kind of like the midpoint cycle, kind of like our halfway through competition for the CrossFit side of things. And then now we're going through a transition week, and then we're going to ramp back up for this new current cycle, continuing to build on a lot of the things that we were doing. So some of the strength progressions on the RX side of it are going to change a little bit. So we started off with building up to like retesting the 4-rep max front squat, which we all thought was a really good idea. Let's take some of the things that we saw were the biggest weaknesses from the biggest comp that led for the year, which was stage 2 for the majority of the RX athletes. And let's just go ahead and attack it right away. So we had really good progress there. Now we're going to start to transition into just more Olympic weightlifting, because the first 6 weeks of that cycle was more put on developing absolute strength work. We still did Olympic weightlift, but it wasn't in there like a true Olympic weightlifting cycle. So we will see more of the Olympic lifts now and more time spent developing those lifts with still hitting squat progressions as we go.
Yeah, I think it's important for people in the sport. That 4RM exposed a lot of people that have a really, really heavy weightlifting bias, that you have a lot of speed and you have a lot of technical precision, but you just don't have the leg strength that's required to hit some of the bigger lifts. So going through that cycle and having that be almost like a foundational building for us moving into weightlifting seems to make more sense, because a huge portion of the audience, like you see Noah and Travis and people who are super strong, and you see that, but it's really a small portion of the audience. I think on the broad level, most of the people we have following the design could really benefit from being stronger, and the strength lifts or having the ability to turn over something heavy is just a big limiter in the sport.
Yeah, and you see how biased it is in the sport. Obviously,
20% of the testing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it moved you up the leaderboard so much more than maybe being more fit on like workout 1 of stage 2.
Yeah.
Like if you were really good at the front squat, that could really help you out. And also, you could do well on all the other workouts, but have a bad front squat, and then it can knock you out of the semifinals.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing how the testing every year can play a role in what determines fitness. But I think over the last decade, being strong is just helpful.
Yes.
It's just, and it also transfers into just gymnastic strength. I don't know if it's just like, if your nervous system gets more powerful in just very simple compound lifts, it just seems to help in every other skill acquisition.
Yeah, so we tested 4RM front squat. We built up to a heavy deadlift single, hit a couple progressions there. And then we're going back into clean and jerk front squat work on Monday. This will be percentage builds. And then Tuesday, we're going to have, I'm actually taking out barbell on Tuesdays. It's going to be mostly gymnastics, because I want Monday and Wednesday this cycle to be more heavy focused on the barbell. The last cycle, we did a little bit of barbell work on Tuesdays, some overhead stuff, but this is going to be mostly upper body pushing and pulling combos, strict work, isometric work, plank support work. That's going to really kind of like help bridge the gap between those 2 days while also continuing with gymnastics development. Wednesday is going to be more split jack.
Yeah, we got a new movement.
There it is. Yep. Split jerk, technical focus, overhead strength presses, push presses, things like that. And then some single leg strength work and development. And then Fridays, snatch work, one arm development there with back squat, auto-regulated type work with a mix of overhead squat development. And then Saturdays, we'll put the hinging and the heavy pulling back on Saturdays with bench work. And we'll kind of like do an alternating cycle. So I'm pulling this from what I just did with the elite cycle, where we did heavy deadlift, heavy bench on 1 week, and then the next week was more of an endurance focus, and we're gonna like alternate that because like a heavy deadlift, right? Like it's hard to train that every week and not get super beat up while you're also doing a ton of heavy squatting and pulling, especially with the Olympic lifting cycle kind of kicking back in now. We're gonna alternate that, and I think it allows for people to like extend out a strength training cycle much longer and be healthy.
Yeah, I've found that. I've been running most of the on-site sessions and watching people do that. That progression for CrossFit has seemed to be really good. And it's almost a model. I've heard elite powerlifters talk about not really pulling heavy off the floor within, they say sometimes 3 weeks apart from one another. I'm guessing, you know, the load at 1,000 pounds or 800 pounds is probably makes that necessary. But I think the 14 days is really good, that people can like get sore from it, dip into their nervous system, have 2 weeks to recover. But in between, instead of not touching the movement, they're touching the sport specific movement, which is the touch and goes. So it's almost allowed like all of the athletes that are on site that have been continuing with those progressions to maintain their 1RMs while also feeling good in Metcons. So I think that's been a good way to approach it. I think it'll be a good transfer to the RX or the elites who are now in the off season.
Yeah, it was good results, right? Like, I mean, I know we didn't do this in the RX, but watching the elites from that cycle, like we had a couple of 1RMs from the pulled heavy single the week before, and then we also had a bunch of PRs in Linda, which that was more of like the bench press development as well. So kind of keeping that same theme on Saturdays. That's the strength work that will be done after the throwdown. So in terms of the next 6 weeks, that's the focus on the strength work. CrossFit, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's important to say first that the RX, Masters, and Intermediate will all follow the same template with just some slight changes from day to day. So
RX, Masters, Intermediate, and Elite. The only elite people now, like we'll maybe create a new name for the people that are currently in season doing semifinal and games prep. That training looks a little bit different right now, just in terms of what needs to be prepared for. But I'm going to encourage everyone who's not in season right now to follow the RX path, and then we'll just give some additional volume for those that want extra volume, that have a little bit more time. And that kind of allows us to have some period of time where the whole community gets together and trains together. And then we can kind of branch apart again as next season gets a little bit closer. So I think it'll be a cool time for everyone to be a little bit more integrated right now.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Like, it's been a lot because this season has been so long with different stages of competition. But we asked for it. We complained. We complained for 2 years.
Now we got the structure.
Now we got it. But and then we're like, man, like trying to keep our heads on straight. How do we organize this? But yeah, having everyone back on the same kind of plan moving forward into the next open season is going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, I agree. So with that said, you'll see those same, what Mike just talked about with the strength progressions. Everyone will be following those progressions with just some slight changes based on, you know, maybe intermediate path is doing a little bit more, you know, working on some technical work, whereas the Masters maybe just a little bit less volume or less intensity on some days. The CrossFit will also be the same, but again, those slight tweaks will be in there, and we'll talk. You can maybe touch on the intermediate path since Mia's not here right now. But on Mondays, we're going to be doing some barbell, which will be mostly hinging mixed with gymnastic combos. So some of that will be grip intensive, some of that will just be heavier loads with maybe more dense gymnastics. You saw that in stage 1 of the games this year with the 30
event 3
or
test 3 week 3 or whatever.
20.3. I get so mixed up now with all the
21.3.
They don't call it that.
Or some other combos similar that you maybe have seen before. And we'll kind of build up, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but we're going to have a fun competition towards the beginning end of the summer.
Should we talk about that competition or finish it?
Let me finish this. I'm going all over the place. So that'll be Mondays. Obviously, we'll have a progressive model in place to kind of continue to build that. And then, you know, we'll test some things at the end of that cycle. On Tuesdays, it's going to be some mixed cyclical work. So all of the machines with some other body weight stuff like burpees, double unders, box jumps, hand release push-ups, wall walks. We're going to add all those things in that maybe may come out again, especially something like a wall walk. No one was ready for that. So why are you smirking? I said that.
This day makes me want to puke.
On Wednesdays, we'll do pressing endurance, and the focus here is going to be finishing up some of the progressions that especially the RX and intermediate path have been on from that stage 2 workout 1, which was the 3 rounds into the next 3 rounds of just basically all upper body
push up. Dumbbell, double under, shoulder blowout.
So at the end of this cycle, we will actually retest that workout just so everyone has something to look forward to. On Fridays, it'll be more squat endurance based. We'll have some mixed bounding and cyclical work in there. Some of that will lend itself towards one of the fun tests that we'll have at the end of the summer in the competition, but also just in general, like you think about some of the tests that came out, again, with 20.3, a lot of squatting in that one with the front squat and the thruster, but then also the row wall ball test. Some people just were awesome at that, but then there were a lot of people that were 2 or 3 minutes behind. And some of that maybe is squatting endurance. Some of that maybe is just like their ability to row fast. So we're going to mix some of that back in because now we've seen it with 19.1 and that test. I think that's just something that you don't want to be 2 minutes behind on a workout like that.
That seems like a workout too. If you're a little bit of a smaller athlete and you are naturally, or from a physics perspective, you don't really have an advantage on either the rower or the wall ball, when you pair that, it just exacerbates your weakness. Yeah. So it's a good thing to train if you're not a taller athlete or a heavier athlete in the sport.
Yeah, I put a lot of clients immediately after stage 2 ended right through row wall ball progressions, just because it was like, even after 19.1, it's a combo that we've seen before, but I was like, all right, we're still not ready. Still need more.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is you can get better at it, but still be a couple minutes behind, which really hurts you on the leaderboard. So continuing to improve that is important. And like Max said, like the sport almost self-selects the smaller athletes, especially on the male side. And so most of them aren't good at wall balls and rowing. So it's something that you do have to practice.
Yeah.
And then obviously Saturdays will be our throwdowns. We have some, we've been doing throwdowns. We've been doing some semifinal prep. Now we're going to transition back over the next couple of weeks to kind of that online qualifier style workout, which will be fun.
Open-esque.
Yes.
I have a really important question. Why the hell does Mike have one ear out of his headphones?
Because I've done this enough times to know that my ears overheat wearing these things. Is this bad? All right. Yeah. Okay. My ears get so hot.
I can't see it.
It feels so. This makes such a difference.
I love
now.
it. Yeah. I think I might have to.
The camera. I don't even think the camera can see it.
Probably not, but I can. I can see through your ear hole right now.
My ears have never gotten hot.
My left one's on fire right now. I might switch here in a second.
Do you want me to put here?
No, I'm good.
All right. Back to training. So the intermediate path. If people have not trained with us, or I guess listened to enough of our philosophies about training, I think as an organization, we probably all agree that if you want to get to the point that you're an elite athlete, the path to do that is not necessarily doing what they're doing. Yeah. You got to kind of go back to where they were in their process early on and develop those skills, develop some of those strengths, which means sometimes we have to deviate from the training structure, but we try to keep it fun, keep the template in there, keep you doing Metcons that are similar to what we're doing. I guess last cycle's focus with Mia was handstand push-ups and toes to bar progressions, where we did retest. Those are pretty common movements in the open that limit people. Now we're adding to that chest to bars, muscle ups, I think one more
ring muscle
and
up.
ring
Bar
muscle
and
both ring
muscle
muscle ups. So those will be the progressions that we do strength and skill development. We've done throwdowns that have those in there, and I talk about if you're an intermediate athlete and you're scaling the workout, make sure that you do progressions of this stuff. So that way, instead of like jumping into a workout and doing singles and, getting sloppy and waiting for a minute between reps, you have the strength and ability to start linking sets, start cutting your rest times down. So we'll have that stuff built into the intermediate path where you can actually develop those skills through this cycle, which I think for most people wanting to compete in the sport is super valuable, because those are the skills that generally hold them back. Like you see that in a workout and you're like, oh, I can't do it.
Yeah, I think the intermediate, the big focus is like, we're trying to push you beyond just learning to survive in workouts, right? We want you to start thriving in them, where you're actually like able to handle what the sport's demands are, right? And that just takes cycles of development, and no better time than right now, just because we have so long until the season actually starts.
I hear all the time people say, well, I just need to build my engine to get better at the sport. But if you can't do those movements, you can't ever really test your engine in the sport anyways. So I think that for
constantly
those,
limited.
Right. And we have people that reach out all the time and say, hey, I'm signing up for the design. Which path should I do? The first question you should ask is, can I do these skills, right? Can I link chest to bars, muscle ups, toes to bar, handstand push-ups, all kind of like really the gymnastic skills, double unders, whatever. And if you can't, then the intermediate path's a really good place to start, so you can build those up and then test yourself, like Mike said, so you're not just kind of trying to survive a workout, because that's not fun.
Yeah, it's almost like a developmental division to get you to start moving towards being able to express an RX. And maybe sometimes you have workouts that you can perform RX, or you just mixing and matching. But on a general basis, if you don't have those skills, I think you get more improvement if you're following through on those basic strength progressions. Similar, like if you need to get better at snatching, sometimes you need to work with an empty barbell or work with a PVC on your positions and your timing and your movement. It's the same thing with those complex gymnastics skills. So having the progressions built in, having some accountability, having Mia in there to give some feedback, I think will be helpful for that group of people.
Cool.
Yeah. So what's the current elites right now, right? Like they're still preparing. Some of them are still preparing for semifinals. Some are competing currently. What's the stage look like for them after that?
Yeah, so we're going to move into games prep right after that. So I'll basically have the division set up that the this video will come out like in between all the semis.
Yeah.
So there'll be some people still in semis and some people that are prepping for games. Like if somebody qualifies from week 1, they'll go into that elite path. The way that I constructed it was basically saying, okay, if you're going to compete, you train all the way through your Saturday. That is basically 6 days out from your competition. And then you start your taper week on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then we're just building the strength progressions all the way out through the games. And then we're just going to start to transition a little bit more into specific games prep, which means we'll probably swim 2 times a week, do a more high volume running progression throughout the course of the weeks. We'll probably run 3 to 5 days a week, depending on the intensity, and putting some speed work back in, putting more like sandbag stuff and drags at the field. So we'll get a little bit more outside the gym, which is the focus generally of the games. But I would highly encourage people that are elite athletes that are not in season not to follow that. I would very much encourage moving to the RX path. And what we're going to do with the RX path is give you additional training volume if you are an elite athlete in your off season. I think that's going to be your biggest bang for the buck. The sport is primarily dictated by what you do in the open, what you do in the gym. Most of the regionals or semifinals, if you look at the tests, they're very regional-esque. They're just basically like open plus, you know, it's all those same movements.
A little bit heavier dumbbells.
Yeah.
A little more challenging reps.
But it's not really games training. So doing games training, if you're not actually training for the games, in my opinion, is going to be a waste of that period of time that you have to develop work. So the elite path is basically split now. We'll have in season and off season following the RX.
Yeah. Not to mention, if you didn't make the games, that means you need to work on those semifinal workouts, and that will be more biased in the RX plus the additional volume that we'll add.
Yeah, true. It's almost like layering in the skills that you need to be a games athlete. And I've heard a lot of people, I was talking to somebody on the training floor, I can't remember, yesterday, and they were saying that they have an athlete that they work with who has all the game skills, but they're not good in the open. And I'm like, well, if you're not good in the open, you're not really a good CrossFitter, because the CrossFit is like highly dictated by the open. It's the stage 1 to get you through, or qualifying. You know, the quarterfinals basically was the open. So doing those skills and putting a primary focus on that as building your foundation, and then layering in the more complex outdoor stuff, is probably the way to go if you really want to be a games athlete.
Would you say I have the weightlifting skills of a games athlete? It's just the open stuff.
Just
the open stuff slows me down a little bit. Doing
Pretty
75 bar facing burpees in 15 minutes. That's not very good.
No, it's not great.
It's just bad test.
It's just bad test. If I could just get lucky and that not be there, you're telling me there's a chance.
Yeah. All right. So that's the 4 divisions. That's what we're doing with training. And then we have done successfully, I would say. We've hosted some competitions. We've hosted the Quarantine Classic. We've hosted the Winter is Coming Classic.
You got it right, dude. First time.
I still stuttered.
6 months after.
Winter is Classic coming.
Classic.
There was
the
one
Winter
video
Classic.
he said Winter is Classic like 6 times. I'm like, no, man.
The big announcement is mark your calendars, July 9th and 10th.
We got a competition without a name yet.
The Johnsonville Summer Sausage Send-Off.
After the Cornhole League on ESPN.
Yeah, the Summer Send-Off Celebration Classic. We're not really sure. If you guys have a specific name that you want, we probably won't listen.
That's the only thing we're not sure of. We're sure of everything else.
Yeah.
We know the events. We know the dates. We know what the intent is within the cycle. It's the big peak kind of send-off for the end of limiter season cycle, you know, so... maybe that's some limiter season send off. I don't know.
Yeah, so we're gonna host the competition.
Hey y'all doing the limiter?
So no, don't use that one.
No, it's a little too nerdy.
It didn't pass the Chris test.
Fine. So we'll have our games athletes, whoever qualifies, doing the competition as a way to like send them off to the games and do something competitive. So the workouts are doable by games athletes. It'll be fun to participate in, I think, for the community. And I think one of the things that competitive people lack in the sport is a place, an opportunity to compete, especially right now. It seems like the competitive infrastructure with COVID is rebuilding, but it's really only rebuilding for that like cream of the crop.
Yeah.
Like there's not really that many people that get an opportunity. So our hope is that we give some competitive focus to training and an opportunity to do some fun competing for everyone in our community that's not really like, I'm making it to semis or I'm going to compete. I think we've had a lot of success in terms of people doing those tests, finding their limits, extending their limits, having fun, getting groups of people to work out with, and giving meaning to their training again. So that's kind of our hope with the competition. We've already designed the workouts. We're excited about them.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same theme that we do with most of our competitions. It kind of goes back to the origins of Strength Engine CrossFit with how we built the design, and all of them have some elements within that, right? I feel like all around the test would have that, but like there's strength tests, there's an engine test, and there's obviously CrossFit. But what I'm excited about is something like you said. Like I think it brings pressure to people's training, because in the summer it's really easy to have that lull. And I'm not saying avoid off seasons or take downtime, but that can kind of get extended sometimes, and like the design is built on making people better at competing in the sport. So we got to compete. And I think you should do it pretty often, right? Not every month, but at least every couple of months, just so you're maintaining touches on it and actually practicing your ability to compete.
There you have it.
Well said, my friend.
Right.
Well said.
Blacked out for a minute.
Where am I?
Yeah. Anything else to mention? I mean, the workouts come out. We'll release them same format, just one per day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. One of them will be a throwdown. And then Friday and Saturday is when we're just building it in the program to do the workouts. You can do them like through the weekend. We have usually like a Sunday night cutoff or Monday morning cutoff, but like the design is going to do them on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah. So we do, in traditional competitions, you basically go into it blind and it's unknown and unknowable. The benefit of us writing the competition is we're going to try to give some training progressions of some of the stuff without alluding to what's actually training for the competition. So basically set you up for a little bit of success, that you're getting some of the components of what we're competing in. You go in, hopefully drop the hammer, and then we deload and start a new process.
Yeah, I think the best way to put that was we'll train the patterns, but not just the specific movements, because we want to be well-rounded. We want to have some variance in our training, but those patterns will be touched every week.
All right.
This cup is on fire.
Please cut that out. All right, everybody. That's the next training cycle for the design: intermediate, RX, elite, masters. Got the competition. If you have a comment about what we want, an alliteration theme with summer in there and 3 S's. If somebody comes up with a good one, maybe I'll consider giving out that damn zinc barbell.
I was going to say, use the barbell. We'll get the names. Great.
But if not, 35,000. Let's get to it.
See you.
Bye. Get better at the sport of CrossFit alongside some of the best athletes in the world in our online training program, The Design. Head over to trainingthinktank.com/DSGN to learn more.